Tonight's presentation is lecture number 3. It's going to be a little bit of a technical dive into Vassal as a wargaming tool. I'm going to go over where to get Vassal, the version you need, as well as the module for the wargame we will be playing on Thursday, Littoral Commander. I won't necessarily be giving a gameplay tutorial of it tonight. The assignment till Thursday is there's a 30-minute video that I've linked inside of the week 2 chat room. If you'll just watch that for some familiarization before Thursday, and then Thursday we will actually be going over the game from the ground up in a very basic scenario. I'll teach everybody how to play. We'll separate you into 2 different teams, and then we'll just kind of walk through maybe a couple turns of the game and then talk about what the game is trying to teach, the design trade-offs, and some feedback from the designer that we've accumulated over time. So if nobody's having any technical issues with the stream, I'll just go ahead and kind of walk us through where that information's at. So you're just going to go to week 2 in the Discord, and then up here, when you click on the module, the first link is going to be the Wargame module, so Littoral Commander. And it's going to bring up this screen. And then the actual Vassal engine that you need to play any of these modules is the second link. Excuse me. And that's going to bring up download Vassal. So I have a Windows operating system. If you have a Mac or Linux or some other kind of operating system, get one of those versions. But if you have Windows 64-bit, right here is going to be the one you need for the most part. And then when you go to the Littoral Commander module, just make sure you download the latest version, which is this 1-3. And then if you're ever curious, maybe you're confused on which version, just go to whichever the date is. So whichever's most recent, that's the one you're going to grab. And then back in the Discord, that assignment video is down here at the bottom. It's actually from the Quantico Warfighting Society, one of the enlisted Marines down here at MCU. Gives a pretty good gameplay walkthrough of what the board game looks like. Is there any questions so far on where to go to get Vassal and the module and where all that information is located? All right. So I'm gonna launch Vassal because I already have it installed. But when you install it, just first download the Vassal engine itself, install it, and then get the module. And the module will automatically install whenever you try to open it. And I will show that for you here. So I've just opened up Vassal, but if I were to open up the Littoral Commander Indo-Pacific module instead of Vassal, it would just open up like so. And this is really the first screen you're going to be presented with. So I'm going to walk you through now what you're going to need to do on Thursday to connect. But on Thursday, we'll still walk through it. But the first screen is essentially going to ask if you want to be offline or online. Because we want to be online for the purposes of the course to be able to play with each other, that's what you're going to select. Look for a game online. And then you're going to click Finish. Now, if you've never opened up Vassal before, it might ask you for a username and a password. That is just whatever you want it to be. You don't have to go to a website and make an account or anything like that. Just set whatever your display name is. Mine's Brooks and Kings. I would just recommend for the course, if you don't already have a Vassal name, just put whatever your name is in the Discord, and then whatever password you want. And then it's going to automatically connect you to the main room. So anybody who loads this module up is essentially going to connect to this main room. So if anybody else were playing this module at the same time, I could see their display name in the main room. You can't actually create games. There we go. So we could see Dawson's actually connected. So you can't create games in the main room. So what you'll do is you'll look for this room that I've created called NPSims. And then if Dawson ends up connecting, you'll see that his name will end up appearing under the, there we go. It might be hard to see on the stream, but he's connected under this room. And then from there, if I already have a save file of a previous game and we're continuing, I can load that. But I'm just going to go with a new game. It'll have all these maps in there pre-built for you. So all the maps that come with the box game are going to be in here. Luzon Strait is basically what all the beginner scenarios start on. So I'll choose that. Don't worry about the log file. And then this is Vassal. So Dawson and Alan are both connected. They should be able to see the map. This is why it's a pretty great free tool to use. I mean, in a matter of 30 seconds, I set up a room with a map and now I've got people in here. If we wanted to create an entirely new scenario, we could do that. So I'm going to go up top. All these buttons up top are going to be how you control different aspects of the game, whether that's pieces. You've got a D20 here when you need to roll dice. It'll ask you how many. If you need a reference guide for player aid, you just click on the play aid and it'll show you all the basic info that you need to know for the game. Same thing with scenario setup, so it comes with all of the pre-built scenarios with it. So if you click on scenario setup, we wanted to do meeting engagement for Thursday, so if you want to get familiar with it, you just click on meeting engagement. It'll tell you what map to load, so we selected the Luzon map already, and it'll tell you any designer's notes. It'll tell you what pieces you actually need to put and on what hex, and I'll go through that in a little bit. And then it'll tell you, what the objectives are for each side and any special rules and considerations. So going back to wargaming as a tool and it being a system of doing things and tabletop being very modular, Sebastian Bay designed Littoral Commander to be a very modular game where if somebody said, hey, I wonder what would happen if we added this rule or chopped off this rule, he's completely fine and actually encourages people to do that. So oftentimes you might have a scenario that has a special rule in it or a special consideration that somebody's just come up to try to give a different flavor to the scenario. So I've even made like a blockade scenario of Taiwan before with special blockade mechanics that only are specific to that scenario. So it just becomes a really easy and free tool, where your creativity is the limit. If I wanted to add pieces down and just kind of brainstorm and see what it's like, I would just go up to the top, click on pieces. Excuse me. It's separated into PLAN, USMC, and then markers and cubes are going to be kind of like your admin stuff. And I'll show you what the cubes are used for. So if we had, let's see if I can get a good picture. So if we go to this reference guide picture right here, you can see the different color cubes on the right, red, black, green. So when we have these cards in our hand on Vassal, we would just simply left click on the cube we want and place it on the tracker. And when we go over it Thursday, I'll tell you what the cubes are for, but just for context, the cubes are used to track your ammunition, health pool, assault values, things of that nature. It's really just for your attacks and your health. So that's kind of like a brief overview of Vassal and kind of what the Littoral Commander module looks like. Some additional things to note: if you wanted to take a look at the rule set in its entirety, I've put it in the week 2 channel as a PDF file right here. But let's say you were in a different module in Vassal, Memoir 44, or anything where somebody's uploaded the rule set. You just go to this Help tab up top and you go to Open Rulebook. And it'll just bring you a PDF file, or it should at least, of the actual rule set. So this is the commercial rule set. It's exactly what you would get if you bought the box copy. So if you really wanted to dive into the rules before Thursday, you could give this a read over. For Thursday's purposes, because it is a beginner-oriented course, we're probably not going to go through all of the rules here, and we're just going to do exactly what I talked about, chop and add things to fit the purpose of the course just to get you through an actual war game and what it looks like. Some additional things to note is if you look at the way the map is designed, pretty much all the information that you need when looking at the map is on here as part of the legend. So if you zoom in, which the default hotkey for that is to hold Control and then mouse wheel in or out. If you want to do it a different way, you just come up to the magnifying glass and click. But you can see the hexes have letters and numbers. So if we go back to the scenario setup, and you can see things like Task Force Miami, 1 Alpha deploy on Q21. That just lets us know that we need to deploy that counter on Q21, which is right here. And when I ping, everybody should be able to see the ping as well. So that's another useful tool if you ever use Vassal as a way to facilitate a war game and you need everybody to focus on something you're talking about. You just hold Alt and left click and everybody will see that ping. But going back to the map legend and some of the design considerations, you could see that for movement, it's just color coded. So green requires 1 movement point to enter. So let's say I had Alpha 1 here. In order to understand how many movement points that unit has, it's indicated by the number in this gray octagon, so 3. So I know that 1 Alpha has 3 movement points, but maybe I don't know how many movement points I would need to enter this hex or maybe this hex. Well, I go down to the legend and I can just look at the color. So green only requires 1, yellow 2, orange 3, so on, and red is actually impassable. So I could probably do 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, and that would be the limit. And so that's some of the design considerations. Is he wanted it to be very easy to understand just by simply looking at it. You don't necessarily need to refer to a chart. It's supposed to be very basic and intuitive for people to learn. Not everybody includes this legend on their maps. Most war games will. But this is a design consideration depending on the scale of the map. There's a balance between having it too cluttered and having enough information to be relevant to what the players need on the fly. So you can see, you've got a turn tracker up here just to keep track of the turns. And you simply just move the cube by left clicking and dragging. You've got the map scale up here in the top right. And that's pretty much Vassal in a nutshell. You can do a lot of different things with it. So let's say this wasn't Littoral Commander, and maybe you're working on your own war game. I've also uploaded in the design and theory section here a Vassal module design playlist. So if anybody wants to actually take a deep dive into Vassal as a wargaming tool a little bit further than what we're going to do here for the course, and you want to get into wargame design and creating your own modules, this is the playlist that I would recommend you to dive into. Pretty much goes start to finish through creating a single module for Vassal. But this is a really good test bed. Designing scenarios, this is how I do it. I have a box copy of Littoral Commander, but it's much easier to just save a scenario on Vassal and load it up later than it is to put the game away every time and bring it back out. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much Vassal. Does anybody have any questions about Vassal or Littoral Commander or what to do between now and Thursday? All right. Well, if there's no questions, that's the lecture. I'm not going to hold you guys and girls longer than needed. Between now and Thursday, if you would, just watch that 30-minute video down here in week 2 and kind of skim through the rule set. Really, just these reference photos are what you're going to need to be able to understand the information on the counter and the maps. And then Thursday, I'll walk you through how to play Littoral Commander. We'll just have a fun time playing a war game. And then we'll have a short discussion afterwards about why the war game does certain things or makes you do certain things, or why cards are an aspect of the game and some of the core mechanics.